Hey, good morning. Tom Bird, Incident Meteorologist with Southwest Team 2 on the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire, and this will be your daily weather update. I'm joined today by Vicki, and I want to thank Vicki for doing the signing for us today. We start out with satellite imagery. This is visible satellite looking down from space, and you're seeing the Gulf Coast states here. This is the Texas-Oklahoma Panhandle. Our fire is located right here in the southern Sangre de Cristos of northeast New Mexico. What you see is this big, huge white blob of clouds that's been building up and slowly drifting to the south and east. That's a huge thunderstorm complex. We'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But what it's been doing is we already expected a backdoor push. That means a push from the east to come in over the Sangre de Cristos that would bring some of this Gulf moisture west into our area. But with this storm over its area, it produces outflow that pushes in all directions. So let's go to our next satellite, and you'll see what that looks like. This is an infrared satellite imagery, and what it does is it looks at temperatures and color codes it. So the colder the temperature, the higher the storm. So this is that area of thunderstorm activity that's been moving across the Texas Panhandle towards Dallas-Fort Worth area. What it's been doing through the night, and you can see these wind barbs, been turning that wind towards the east and pushing moisture back this way, and we're right here. Let me walk over to the map, and I'm going to show you what's happened since 9 o'clock this morning. All night long, here in the Pecos Valley, this is the crest of the Sangre de Cristos, Las Vegas down here, Pecos right there, and here's the Pecos Valley. We've had northerly winds down the Pecos Valley all night long, been keeping dry air in place, and so we've had low relative humidities most of the night and into the morning. But I just showed you that storm to our east, and it's been pushing moisture back this way with outflow. And it just at 9 o'clock crested over the high peaks of the Sangre de Cristos, now spilling down into the Pecos Valley. And in 30 minutes, the relative humidity, which is a measure of the moisture in the air, jumped from 25% to 75%. So that's an indication to us as meteorologists that the moisture has arrived. So now all we need is some heating to destabilize that atmosphere, and we'll start seeing showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon and evening hours. So let's walk back over here to the monitor, and we'll show you today's weather map. So here we are today on the left-hand side, and we're in this circle. And you can see that little boundary right here to our south and west. That's that back door. And then we also had the storms over the Texas Panhandle that also pushed moisture in our direction. So now we're well within this green hatched area. That's the area where rain and thunderstorms are expected. So today we have good chances that we'll see showers and thunderstorms. We've got those at about anywhere from 50 to 70% chance that we will see storms over the fire with rain. That means gusty outflows, some lightning, and possibly some flooding. We move to tomorrow, and you'll notice we're still behind that boundary. It's still to our southwest. That means we continue with that moisture still in and over the fire. We're going to see a little less moisture tomorrow, but it's still going to be in place. So that means we'll still keep that chance of showers and thunderstorms. We'll knock that chance down probably around 40% tomorrow, but that's still a pretty healthy chance that we'd see more showers and thunderstorms. And again, if we get more rain on top of an area where we got rain today, that even increases the likelihood more that we'll see showers and thunderstorms that produce flooding. So let's go on to the next. This is going to show us two things. All these stripes that you see coming out from west towards east, that was yesterday's rainfall. You can actually see the track of each individual storm, and underneath that storm it produced the heavier rain. And so you can see there's areas of red all through here, which is about 2 inches of rain. Some of that is hail that fell out of those storms. Also, these were severe. This one even, I think, had a tornado in it. So this is what it looked like yesterday, and you notice this is just east of the fire. We actually had a light shower that came across the northern portion of the Hermit's Peak fire and some that came off of the east side of the Cook's Peak fire. But for the most part, we stayed dry yesterday. But now the moisture that was here yesterday that produced these storms is now over us today, and that means today we have a better chance. A pretty similar chance to what we had here is now over us today. And so you see this green outlined area right here that I'm tracing. It does cover the entirety of the Hermit's Peak fire and the Cook's Peak fire. That's an area that the National Weather Service office in Albuquerque has designated as an area with wildfire burn scar flooding possible. So there's a flood advisory, a flash flood advisory, giving you a heads up that there's a good potential that we might see that today. So let's go to our next. So what we're looking at here is a chart of rainfall. On here, the right side, up high, is an area where for both Wednesday and Thursday we put how much rain we think we're going to get and where it's going to fall. And you'll notice we're here where you get these light greens to dark green. That puts us anywhere from 1/100 to about a 1/2 inch. You need these blue colors to start getting anything above a 1/2 inch. So you would think that's not a lot of rain. That's probably not something that would cause a flood, and you'd be right. The problem with thunderstorms is it's usually an all or nothing. There's a place that will get 0 rain right next to, within a mile or two, a place that will get 1 inch of rain. So this is kind of the average. There's going to be portions of the fire that potentially would get over 1 inch of rain today. Those would certainly get flooding rains, right? That would be an issue that would cause flood, debris flows, and stuff like that. So we look on these smaller maps to the left, these insets. You notice there's a lot more green over the area today versus tomorrow. That means that's telling us that today is our best chance. And I've already told you, today is the higher chances for showers and thunderstorms. So that's where we think we have the best potential. But again, we repeat that again on Thursday, but with a lesser probability. So let's go to our next. So what we're looking at here is a week's worth of forecast. And this is for a point directly on top of the fire. And we're looking at cloud cover forecast, the dew point temperature forecast, which is a measure of how much moisture in the air, and another measure of how much moisture in the air is this relative humidity forecast. So you'll notice today is when we see the peaks of the relative humidity, the dew points, and the clouds. This is where we have the most moisture. But you see on Thursday, even though we drop off, we're still pretty high. So these are 2 more moist days of the week. We get into Friday, those winds come back westerly. A westerly wind this time of year is usually a dry wind. And so you can see we have fewer clouds. The dew point trace trends downward towards dry conditions, and so does the relative humidity. So again, today and tomorrow, our best chances for showers and thunderstorms, and you can see that on the far left. This is today, Thursday, and Friday, and that's kind of rainfall across the area. We don't worry too much about the size of those bars. We just want to know what days have those bars. It tells us our days with storm potential. Next, please. So here's our weather matrix that we show you every day. And here's our 2 moist days. We've already spoken to these days quite a bit. Really high relative humidities, somewhat cooler temperatures, and high chances of rain and lightning. We mentioned Thursday night into Friday, we start seeing the westerlies. That starts scaring that moisture out. So you'll see these relative humidities start falling and going back into critical dryness by the time we get late in the weekend and through early next week. Something else that we're going to see starting next week is that high pressure that's over us now, that's keeping the wind somewhat light, will move away as the next Pacific trough moves in from the west. For here, that always increases the winds, and so we'll see strong west and southwest winds. And coupled with the high temperatures, the low relative humidity, we'll probably see extreme burning conditions, and we're talking critical fire weather end of this week into going into next week. So let's go to our next slide. And this is getting out of the weather. We kind of completed that section where we're talking about the weather. Now let's talk about how us as IMETs, we've got 2 down here on the south side of the fire and 1 up on the north end of the fire. So we've got 3 meteorologists helping these teams with what they're doing. We put out these incident remote automated weather stations. This is what they look like. It gives us wind, temperature, relative humidity. It counts the precipitation that might fall, and it sends all that information up into a satellite, which is then transmitted back to us at ICP, the Incident Command Post where we work. So we're not up here on the fire. We're down in camp here in Las Vegas, but we can see what's happening up on the hill because it sends us this data, and it sends us these traces. So every 15 minutes, we get a new observation from these sites. We have a permanent raw site down here, south of the fire. We've got another one up here on the north end of the fire. And then over here in the Pecos Valley, where all the heat is right here, right now, This is where we're doing firing operations. This is where we're seeing heat still on the fire. We've got one that we propose to put here, and we have 3 that are already in place right here. So we're really keeping a real close eye on what's happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week while we're here working on the fire. And one more slide. To wrap it up today, we talked about the rainfall. We've talked about the storm. We talked about the potential for some of that to be heavy. And on a burn scar, what happens is prior to the burn, these trees have been dropping needles and leaves and branches for years and years and years, and they pile up, and we call that a duff or a litter layer. And that acts as a sponge when it rains. It collects and holds a lot of that rainfall, and it doesn't run off. And then underneath that, the subsurface soil, it's available to permeate some of that rainfall too. So you get a lot less water running down the hill. Most of it gets soaked into it. Then you get the fire. What happens? It burns that litter away to where now you're just at topsoil, no litter layer, and it also burns so hot that it makes it crusty to the point that it won't absorb water anymore. So now it's like raining on pavement. And you know, when it rains on pavement, it just slides down the hill, right? So this is why the flood risk, the debris flow risk on a wildfire is so much higher, and it's so much more sensitive, and you need much less rain to create dangerous, deadly flash flooding and debris flows. So keep in mind this: if you're anywhere near the fire, if you live in an area down low that has burned area above it, you're in an area that is susceptible to debris flow and flash flooding. So you need to keep a close watch on the weather, listen for updates from the National Weather Service. And that concludes today's update. Thank you.